It is really a study of getting to know yourself deeply and help yourself. And then you can also listen to the signs, because all the answers are in the body. When there's a dis-ease or a disharmony, you can always find the cause in the body. So the more aware we become and the more we begin to understand, then we can more effectively go exactly to the locations that are most in need. And people really start to play with it and start to just practice the flows and see which feel good one day and what feels good another day. And this is where it's an art. There's a great vast technique to it, but it's also as simple as starting holding the fingers and that being very effective.
You are now listening to the Soul and Wonder Podcast, episode 80, The Art of Jin Shin with Alexis Brink.
Welcome to the Soul and Wonder Podcast, where the conduits of the body, depths of the mind, and atlas of the soul are explored with devotion. Through cultural exchange, Christopher and Sarah and their guests will deliver sacred wisdom from around the globe, uncovering the hidden gems of conscious living and holistic healing, all to empower you on your journey of self-discovery. And now, here are your hosts, Christopher and Sarah.
Welcome, everybody, to the Soul and Wonder Podcast. We are your hosts, Christopher and Sarah. We have our very special kitties with us today, Avian and E.T.
They're the best.
They're the best. They're like 5 months old, and we're in love with them. So, really quickly, we just want to thank you guys for joining us, whether you have been with us for a long, long time or you're joining us for the first time. We're just happy that you've decided to share space with us today. As every other week, we do bring you wonderful interviews with amazing people up to wonderful things in the world. And it just keeps getting better. I swear, everybody we interviewed, they just fit right into the Soul and Wonder Podcast. And today we do have Alexis Brink, who is the author of The Art of Jin Shin and the president of Jin Shin Institute in New York City. But before we get into that interview, I want to give you guys a friendly nudge to just hop on over to our iTunes and give us a review or subscribe on any platform that you prefer to listen to our podcast on. This really helps us out. You know, your support increases those numbers, which means we get to get all of the wonderful, amazing guests that you guys are hoping to listen to. And it also spreads this information quicker, farther, and wider so that everybody can have access to free content. And make sure you give us a follow and a like on Facebook at Soul and Wonder, and also on Instagram at Soul and Wonder Love. You guys are what makes this world go round. All right, so Alexis Brink. Like I said, she's the author of The Art of Jin Shin and the president of Jin Shin Institute in New York City. She has been a practitioner of the Art of Jin Shin since 1991 and is a licensed massage therapist and interfaith minister, and has taught self-help classes and workshops in New York City as well as in different countries for many years. She's taught Jin Shin in hospitals to nurses and to teachers and their students in the public school system, which I think is super cool. And today, Jin Shin Institute, under Alexis's guidance, is offering a comprehensive curriculum to a new generation of practitioners and teachers.
And when we got her book in the mail, I was just so excited to take read through the whole entire thing before we interviewed her and really start putting some of her practices to work. And I can definitely say that they absolutely do work. And I recommend anybody who is looking for a new modality and is into alternative medicine to take a look into this a lot deeper. I mean, in this interview, she really highlights a lot of different things, including her story of how she was introduced to such an ancient and secretive healing practice, the energetics of Jin Shin, how it works and what it can be used for. And she shares inspirational stories of healing that she herself has witnessed, as well as everyday life hacks you can use today to start implementing the basics of Jin Shin.
Like Chris said, it's just wonderful to add another modality to the books, really. And to know that Jin Shin is something that is not widely taught makes it even more intriguing. And it's so, so simple. You can't go wrong with it. So we hope that you guys enjoy Alexis and the wonderful energy she brings to the table, as well as the wealth of knowledge she provides on the Art of Jin Shin. See you at the end. All right, everyone. We're happy to bring Alexis on. We've just been chatting it up a bit about how she had 2 natural births. And since we're expecting soon, that's coming along our timeline. And Alexis, I'm going to pick your brain a bit about labor and this and that with the Art of Jin Shin. But first, of course, we should talk to our listeners all about what this even is. But thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And I know it's an exciting time for you, and I'm happy to be here at this moment in time to even discuss a little bit about your birth.
It's all perfect. It's all perfect.
It is.
So what exactly is the Art of Jin Shin, and how did you specifically get introduced to it?
It's a form of energy medicine that comes from Japan, and it's similar to acupuncture. But however, there are no needles involved. So you can use your 2 hands to either give a session to someone you love or to work on yourself. And so this is what this book is about.
That's wonderful. Yeah. And I mean, after going through the book, really, as I was saying off air, a lot of the things that you were explaining throughout the book and the way Jin Shin works and the way the system works really resonated deeply with us. And so, can you kind of just go into how this works, maybe a little bit more specifically, and how it works with the energetic system of the body and what that does for us when we practice it?
Yeah, so the basic principle is that energy flows down the front of the body, and that has to do with our exhale. And then from the toes, it goes up the back, and that has to do with our inhale. So first of all, breathing is very important. So when we get stressed in our daily lives, or we have a bad diet, or we are the weather is very hot or too cold, or sometimes our energy gets out of balance and we get energetic blockages. And so by placing your hands of certain specific areas on the body, you help to unblock these stuck energy so the energy can flow freely again down the front and up the back, and the body can heal itself. So that's the basic principle. So just by placing your hands, you get the energy to move and the body can heal itself. So it's really very simple in a way.
It's almost like a jump start cable for a car, but on your body.
Yes. We call our hands the jumper cables because when I work on someone, I have a private practice as well where I treat people. When I place my hands on the body, it's not actually my energy that I'm giving, or I'm not taking energy, but it's simply just harmonized. When I place my hands, the energy for the person begins to harmonize all by itself. As soon as I place my hands, the energy starts to move. And so that's very powerful. And then healing can begin to occur.
Well, that's beautiful because you don't have to sacrifice any of your life force to hold that space for someone else to initiate their self-healing.
Exactly. And I think people are aware, and certainly both of you are, that we are capable of healing ourselves, really, that we can do so much ourselves, which is really empowering to know that we can do so much ourselves. And so this is a simple way to activate. And I like what you said about the life force. It is really rebooting and recharging our life force and bringing our bodies back into rhythm with universal energy, which is, again, where healing takes place.
And so from what we understand, Jin Shin it's an ancient practice that isn't exactly widely known. So how did you get introduced to this practice?
People get to it in strange ways. I mean, let me say, first of all, that it's really my mission and the mission of my institute, Jin Shin Institute, to put this practice on the map where it should be like known as Reiki and yoga and all these other practices, because it is so simple and effective. But how I got into it, I was a dancer and I came to the United States when I was 18 from Holland, hence my slight accent, even though I've been here so long. And I had this knee injury, and a friend of mine, brought me to see this woman who who did this energy work, and I'd never heard of energy work before. And she said, "So what's with you?" And I said, "Well, I have this knee injury." And she did something with my toes, and I went back to rehearsals the next day. And so she taught me how to do some simple holds on myself, and I was able to completely maintain a healthy knee. And every time I would feel something come up, I was able to help it. So I never had to stop dancing again. And I took a workshop with her the following week. She said, "Why don't you take a workshop so you can work on your friend?" So I did, and it completely changed my life. I didn't really have a clue what she was saying all week, because it was the technique is very fast and a bit complicated, but there was something about it that made so much sense to me. And it was really this connection to source, and it made me feel like I was part of something bigger than myself. So that was the first thing that really drew me into it completely.
Wow.
That's wonderful. And it seemed like right off the bat that was your calling. And again, clearly it was your mission to spread this art and this healing technique to the world. And again, like I mentioned in the beginning, this really resonated with us. And just kind of flipping through the book from front to back, we start with the fingers and starting there. So can you kind of, I think we'll probably run this a few different ways, go through some simple techniques, some ways in which we can practice that starting today, into the more, the different circulations moving through stomach and all the different organs of the body. But if you could start with the fingers and kind of explain what that does and how the energy moves through each of the different fingers.
Yes. So Mary Burmeister, and she's the lady that brought Jin Shin Jitsu to the United States and to the West. She said that every dis-ease or disharmony begins with an emotional attitude. And so by holding each of the fingers, you're helping an emotional attitude. And when you hold a finger, it helps an emotion, and it also helps two organ functions. So if we just practice, let's say, holding the thumb, and you can just hold with let's say, your right hand, whichever hand feels more comfortable to you, but you can hold let's say, your right thumb. And there you're helping to harmonize the emotion of worry. And worry burdens the stomach and spleen energy. So just by holding the thumb, you're helping the stomach and spleen energy and digestion and everything that comes with that. Spleen helps to boost the immune system. And so people ask me, how do you hold it? So you can hold it gently right now. And what you will feel is a slight pulsation come up in the thumb. And that means that the energy begins to spiral, and it spirals all the way to the center and then spirals back up to surface. So the pulse will change as you're holding it, and you take a few deep breaths, because breathing is very important. If there's no breath in the body, the energy will not move. So breathing is number one. And then, yes, go ahead.
I was going to say, we're doing this right now as you speak, and that pulsing is so vibrant and so alive.
Yeah, so it's interesting. When you are pregnant, you're going also through different cycles of energy. And probably for you, holding the thumb is very good and very settling and building your immune system and helping digestion, because, as your belly is growing, of course, it affects your digestion as well. And if you think about it, a baby, they often, when they come into the world, when they're little, they suck their thumbs. And so they are naturally helping to harmonize their digestion and self-soothing, because holding the thumb is very calming. So that's basically how it works. And then let me just move through the emotions. The index finger helps to harmonize fear. So if you just hold that finger and take a few nice deep breaths, and it helps the kidney and bladder energy. And today we hear a lot about anxiety, and young people. My kids are college-age kids, and they talk a lot about anxiety. So I always tell them to hold their index finger and breathe. And then the middle finger helps to harmonize anger, and it helps the liver and gallbladder energy. And also when you're very tired, the middle finger will help. It helps to fatigue flow in the body. And again, a few deep breaths. And then the ring finger helps to harmonize sadness and grief. And it helps the lung and large intestine energy. So if you have lung projects, you can just simply hold your ring finger. And sometimes when people are sad, they get some tightness in their lungs or in their upper chests, because that's where the emotions tend to get stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And then the little finger helps the trying twos, or too much efforting in life, or deep emotional attitudes. And it helps the heart and small intestine energy. And then the palm of the hand helps everything. So holding all your fingers in your palm, you're helping the entire body. So that's a very, very easy way to begin practicing the art of Jin Shin.
And I really appreciate that run through and that walkthrough that you gave us. So what, I guess out of curiosity, just to start, so we're holding each of the fingers. That's something obviously we can do throughout the day, any time of the day, whenever. And how long are we holding each of these fingers? Is it just for a couple breaths, or is it maybe longer than that? What does that look like?
Yes, you can hold it for a couple of breaths and move through each of the fingers and palm. And that's, by the way, also very helpful for jet lag, to move through all of the fingers. Or you probably, at certain days, you feel that you tend to go to a specific finger. And so that's fine too. You can hold one finger for a couple of minutes. If you have been working really hard, or trying really hard and efforting a lot, you may want to hold your little finger for a while, or if you have a lot of anxiety, holding your index finger for a while. And so you don't have to do all of them at once or at the same time. And I always say it's better to do like a minute of Jin Shin than not at all, because people do it on themselves all the time anyway. If you look around, like somebody will place a hand on their shoulder, or holding an upper arm, or touching their forehead, like, I don't, what was that again? And they're trying to remember. Well, that point between the eyebrows helps with mental clarity. So it is really an innate part of our being. Anyway, we come into the world with this knowledge, and it's just becoming aware of it again. And then I was like, oh, this feels really good today. And this is what I would like to hold today, and bringing an awareness to it.
Would someone have to have an idea of what each part of these points represent for it to work effectively, or is it simply the energetic contact that does the cleansing?
That's such a good question. Well, you don't have to know about it, because, like I said, people touch exactly what they need anyway, subconsciously. Mm-hmm. But it's very interesting, because it is really a study of getting to know yourself deeply and help yourself. And then you can also listen to the signs, because all the answers are in the body. When there's a dis-ease or a disharmony, you can always find the cause in the body. So the more aware we become, and the more we begin to understand, then we can more effectively go exactly to the locations that are most in need. And people really start to play with it, and start to just practice the flows, and see which feel good one day and what feels good another day. And this is where it's an art. Like like I said, there's a great technique to it, and I've been practicing this for 30 years. There's a great, vast technique to it, but it's also as simple as starting holding the fingers, and that being very effective.
And it sounds like, paired with someone's intuitive nature, intuitive sense of oneself, is what almost creates it as an art form, because they're able to use it specifically for their body, mind, soul needs.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And again, we all come into the world with this intuition, really. It's just that then we start to think about it and doubt ourselves and put our mind to it, and then it changes. So this really clears the mind. It's in effect, it's the same what you achieve with meditation or yoga. It's this place of really the zero place where you're just empty of your thoughts and the energy can flow freely. So all these modalities greatly overlap in that way.
Absolutely. And I guess to get into the deeper parts of the practice, which I would like to go into next, some of the flows that you talk about, when in your opinion or in your viewpoint, where do you see disease stemming from? So we talk about the different energy points and how they're related to these emotions. So are you of the belief that the emotions are then causing the energetic centers in those various areas of the body to become weak because of the holding on to those emotions, which then cause the physical manifestation of disease?
I mean, that's one thing of it. The right side of our body tells us about our lifestyle and daily stresses, environment, diet. Most importantly, I think our daily lifestyle, which is so stressful and fast today. So if people have a lot of projects, and we call them projects rather than problems because they're fun and you work with them. So projects, when people get projects on the right side, it has to do with more with the lifestyle. When people get projects on the left side of their body, it has to do more with genetic predispositions or older traumatic incidents. It could be 20 years ago or 5 years ago or something like that. That would manifest more on the left side of the body. So emotions are a part of it, and not all of it, but we all have them. And then you can ask, what if a baby comes into the world with a project? We can still look at it from either genetically or also maybe if the mom, when they're carrying the baby, if they get a cold in the 3rd month, that has to do with a specific cycle of energy that the baby doesn't get the energy it needs in that month. So the baby doesn't necessarily come into the world with emotions, although there is still already genetic predispositions and things that the mother went through, or the father, or other things that already affect the baby. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And so what if, and obviously hypothetically speaking here, somebody is experiencing some sort of projects on both sides of the body. So that's obviously a culmination of both the physical, the lifestyle portion, and then also the emotional / genetic predisposition.
Yes. And also we always looking for the balance between the right and the left side. So if somebody has projects on their left side and their left side is depleted, then the right side will start to overcompensate. And so often then they start to build projects on the right side. So in a session, I usually then start, I can't say exactly because it totally depends on the person, but a way to treat it would be to start to break down the right side first, to allow the left side to come up. So it's always the balance between the right side or the left side. Or maybe the left side is so empty and depleted that I would give a little something first on the left side so that the right side can tone down. Oh, so it's always the right. We get out of balance because either the right or the left side goes too fast or too slow. So it's always balance between right and left side.
That makes a lot of sense. And something struck me when you were speaking. Chris and I are both certified in Reiki. And I know that at a certain point through Reiki, you're able to do long distance healings. Is Jin Shin available in that regard, or is this more effective when you're in person?
Personally, I do it in person, but there have been people that I've heard they do it long distance, and so energy is not limited to placing the hands on the body. So in effect, you can do that. Yeah, definitely.
It's so funny because when I first heard that you could do any kind of energy healing from a distance, I must admit I was skeptical. I had a healthy dose of skepticism, and it wasn't until I started practicing from a distance, with not just myself and others, but them with me. And it was undeniable.
Yeah.
And I would have people who were also skeptical, but they had nothing to lose. So then we would experiment with these energetic modalities from afar. And you're right, energy transcends time and space and all of those illusory constructs.
Yeah, I think that is very true. And I think that as you, as a Reiki practitioner, these modalities are very similar because you work with the universal energy. It's an energy that doesn't necessarily come from us as us being the source, but we tap into something larger. And then, yes, that is not limited to just our bodies. Or, I mean, you can think about somebody and then they happen to call you at that moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, are there accidents? We don't know. There's so many questions about these kind of things.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you went through that a little bit. It definitely makes so much sense. We are connected energetically, whether, we can, I guess the science is now proving it in quantum physics and all of that. And it's pretty amazing. But, I want to dive a little bit deeper into, we worked with the fingers and that's a great starting point. But then you talk about the SELs, the safety energy locations, and the 26 SELs in the body. And how do those then flow into the organ flows that you talk about and a little bit, I guess, deeper of a practice of Jin Shin?
Mm-hmm. Well, Jiro Murai, who's the father of Jin Shin Jitsu, and by the way, Jitsu means art. So to make it more accessible, I'm calling the book The Art of Jin Shin. He was the one that he did a lot of research, and so he identified these 26 safety energy locations, and there are 26 on the right side of the body and 26 on the left side of the body. And so when those 26 are open, then there is harmony in the body. So when we are human beings and we're not only spirit, and we tend to build up stuff, these safety energy locations get blocked and they become like little traffic jams. And you can feel it. For example, if you touch the inside of your knee, then you will feel that probably that one side is a little more congested than the other one. So you can open that up by holding it gently. So these locations are about the size of the palm of your hand, and then there's a bullseye in them. So I like to always go to the bullseye. I find that most effective. And so Jiro Murai created these flow patterns, which are a sequence of these safety energy locations. And when, for example, if you look at the stomach flow, there are a sequence of several steps. And when you perform those steps on yourselves, when you practice that flow, then the whole energy pathway will open up just by holding 4 or 5 or 6 safety energy locations in a specific sequence. So that's where it's different than, for example, in acupuncture, where I think there are more than 300 points that they're working with. We're just working with these 26 and the spine. So each vertebra on the spine and also on the ribs down the front. So that is one of the differences with other modalities. Each of these safety energy locations, they have a specific practical meaning, what they help, and they also have a spiritual meaning. So by understanding which safety energy location is locked or congested, you can learn again a lot about yourself from a spiritual perspective. And again, that's one of the beauties that got me interested in it. Again, to get to know about yourself.
Yeah, it definitely makes so much sense too. I like going through this and reading each of the SEL points, reading the descriptions as you provide in the book makes so much sense. So I have a kind of a 2-part question. One would be, let's say I read SEL, whatever, I was pick a number. I read SEL 6 and it really resonated with me that maybe I'm experiencing some of the physical expressions and the universal meaning really just resonated with me. would I then, outside of just the flows that we'll get into next, would I hold that point every day for a certain amount of time until I felt, I guess, sort of release or a shift?
Yes, you can. You can. And when you feel a congestion, you can just hold it till it opens, but to open very quickly. The body wants to be in well-being. And when I treat people with pain and they're out of pain so quickly, even often after one session, they don't even remember it. Our body is meant to be well and in a state of well-being. So when you find a congestion and you wait till it opens, you start to change and you feel different. It's really about bringing our individual lifestyle and our body into rhythm with universal energy, and that rhythm feels really good. And I think most of us have experienced it. A lot of people today are doing yoga, and when you walk out, you just feel so good and you feel in harmony. And so holding these locations will bring you there.
And that makes a lot of sense. And to your point, and to talk a little bit deeper into the organ flows. So you have the 12 organ flows in the book, and each of these organs obviously related to the, spleen, to the liver, to the stomach, all the way on. So let's say we have possibly a physical manifestation of a problem in the stomach area. Would you suggest, obviously going through each of those, that flow, do you hold as long as you would like the fingers, like a couple breaths for each of the SEL points?
Yes, it takes 20 minutes to complete a circulation pattern. So if you give yourself a stomach flow, then you can take 20 minutes to do that. And that will help the energy pathway of the stomach, which you can see flow from the cheekbone to the toes. And when this is pure energy. So when you find something on the stomach pathway, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with the stomach. Now, in turn, when you have a stomach issue, you can give yourself a stomach flow and it may resolve it. But because you work with energy, it may be another organ function actually that is burdening the stomach energy. So that's where the art comes in. It's like, what is the cause of the project? Because when you have a stomach project, it's a symptom, right? And you need to get to the cause of it. And so that is something that you can find out and learn also through this practice.
So that would be generally going through possibly the 12 different organ flows and feeling what resonates most. And then, so each of the actual flows that you have multiple steps. Some have 4, some have 6, some have 7. So if you say 20 minutes, you would essentially divide that 20 minutes by the number of step or points, and then you work on that point for X amount of time until you reach the 20-minute marker.
You can, but you can also do it shorter. Again, there's not really any rules. As when you feel the pulsation, then the energy begins to move, and it continues to move by itself. So you can already go to the next spot. So if you have only 10 minutes to practice Jin Shin, or even if you have a minute, you can do it, because the energy will start to move, and it begins to flow down the front and up the back. It starts to release already by itself. So ideally, and when you get more into the technique, you can practice 20 minutes. A lot of my clients, they practice an hour on themselves every day, and they start to explore all of the flows. They're loving it so much, and they're just starting to explore what feels good to them. And certain days you do this flow, and other days you do that flow, or you can create a daily self-help routine. Personally, I always work with the main center source. Did you see that one? It's called the first 3.
Yep.
Yeah. So those are more in the beginning. Those are pure source energy. So they are not pathways yet like the stomach flow, because you don't see a pathway illustrated. where, for example, the stomach flow is a pathway. It's like a meridian. You can already see the flow pattern. The first three are not. So those flows are pure source energy, and they are always perfect. So if you do the main center source, which is the one that I do every day on myself, it helps the whole endocrine system. It helps your entire body. It sets you up for the day. And my teacher says, don't leave home without it. And it's so true. It really just gets you going. So that's a really nice one to do for you, for both of you.
What I love about this art form is that it really increases one's self-perception and self-awareness of what it is that they truly need each passing moment, and it gives them room to experiment. And it doesn't sound like there's any risk involved, like, oh no, you're gonna, screw up your entire energetic body
absolutely.
if you do the different flow.
Yeah, that's very true.
Intended.
Yeah, and I also, in the back of the book, there's 70 symptoms. So people who are just interested more in a quicker fix, I have those too. So you can make it a daily practice or a daily routine, or you can take it wherever you want, or take a simple hold, which is just one step where you hold two SELs together. And those I call holds, and then the flow patterns I call flows. So that's the difference.
Wonderful. Yeah. I mean, the book is super straightforward and informational. I mean, anybody could really pick this up and read it and get through it. And it's great. It's such a wealth of information that I think everybody can benefit from. And so throughout all of these years that you've been practicing Jin Shin and helping to facilitate healing for others, what are some, maybe just a few powerful stories of healing that you can share with our listeners that you've experienced yourself or through other people?
Yeah, so some I put in the book, but of course I have more. One story we didn't put in the book because it was too almost like, too unbelievable, but I'm going to tell you. Not
We like those ones.
Yeah. So I was sitting on the airplane, and you know how they announce, like, is there a doctor? And so I always go and check, because the doctors, they have limited access to medical assistance. So they always go, oh, what's wrong? And then the person is completely unconscious, or they fainted. So I go and I sit and I hold I hold the back of their head. So anyway, so they called and the doctor was there. So there was this man who was completely out, and he was lying over 3 chairs, and he was really unconscious. And so I held the back of his head, and he came back after a couple of minutes. And so I went back to my seat, and when I went to my seat, there was this lady lying down in front of the toilet, and she also had fainted. So I started to work on her, and by that time the whole crew started to come around me, and after a few minutes the woman came back, same points that I held, just on the back of the head. And so then I turned around, and this lady behind me, she started to collapse as well. And the crew was like, can you come here? Can you come over here? Can you help her? And I'm like, okay, hold on 1 minute. Let me just finish with this lady. And so she got up. And so the other lady, she went flat on the floor. And so then I was holding the back of her head, and she also came back. And the guy that was sitting next to me, he was watching all of this, and he was from Israel, and he was jumping up and down. He's like, oh my God, you're bringing all these people back. This is so amazing. And so I think that was one of the fun stories, or fun. I mean, it wasn't at the time, but it was good that they all came back, and they were all fine. Too.
Did you ever find out what was the cause of their fainting?
Well, I asked the air steward. I said, was there something in the food? And she said no, because then a lot more people would have gotten sick. The first man was much more serious, because I actually did have to go back to him. They called again, and he was not good at all. So I held actually some other points to help his heart. And so in the end, he was fine. I mean, probably eventually he has to go to the hospital, but his son was thanking me so much, and so he was okay. And the ladies, I guess it wasn't very, very serious. They had just fainted. I'm not sure exactly why, but I have many stories about fainting, people collapsing on the street and all of that. But then also just in my practice, one more story. a neighbor who's 80 years old, he came to visit me and he said he's had neck and shoulder pain for 20 years, and every night it would wake him up. And just after one session, I bumped into him the following day. And he's like, "You're a miracle worker. You're a miracle worker." And he was out of pain. So just a lot of stories like that. So those are easy projects. Then I also, of course, work with more complicated projects like cancer or serious heart projects or things like that. And, that is people usually continue with this work because it's so nice and they start to really love it and makes them feel better. But even clients who are on radiation or chemotherapy, they can work on themselves every day and keep their blood counts up and keep their immune system up and get rid of the fatigue, and which is very empowering when you have a big label to be able to help yourself.
I love that you've made this information so widely accessible, because we should all have access to these types of modalities to be able to initiate our own self-healing. And I know that it's also beneficial to work with someone as well, because the power of that co-creation kind of amplifies things. Do you think so too?
I think so too. And you notice as a Reiki practitioner, it's a little bit different when you work on yourself, but it's very good to maintain your body, and you can't go every day to a practitioner. So there's a lot you can do on your own as well. And I just like to give you some tips also for the baby and for you.
I was just about to ask. I was like, wait a minute, let me ask for selfish reasons and for any pregnant women listening to this right now.
The great thing is that this podcast will be out into the cloud space forever, and there will be plenty of pregnant women that listen to this. So it's beneficial for them all.
Wonderful. I love that. So one of the things that you can do when you're going to be there, right, to help Sarah there?
Yes, he will be there for sure.
Yep.
One of the things is you can hold the back of the knees. They help to open up the sacral area. So you can hold the back of the knees. That's one thing. And then the other thing is you can hold the sacrum and let's say the right sacrum and the left back of the knee. And that will help to open up the sacrum. So that's a very nice thing to do. And then when the baby is born, you can hold the back of the head of the baby, because the fours, there's safety energy location 4, they are called the bridge, and they're the bridge between consciousness and unconsciousness, and the bridge between, it will help to bring the baby into this world. And so that's a beautiful thing to do, is to just simply put your index finger right on the back of the head of the baby. And that will help them to transition beautifully into the world. And then if the baby would be colicky, you can hold the back of the knees as well. That helps digestion.
Okay, so if you have a baby, this could be at any point a baby that's, like you said, colicky, just hold the back of the knees for a short time, and that should really help. Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
That's good to know. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of people will thank you for that one.
Yeah.
What about pain relief, perhaps during surges or contractions?
For any kind of pain, you can sandwich the ankle. So you can put one hand on the inside of the ankle and the other hand on the outside of the ankle. So you have the book. So it's SEL 5 and 16 together. And that helps to relieve, that helps to bring out the natural painkiller. And that's for any kind of pain, for any of the listeners, for any kind of pain, that helps. And nurses use it a lot in the ER. Nurses who are into Jin Shin, they use it a lot in the ER, or they teach it to the family members who are there. So so that will be helpful. And what's also nice is the inside of the knees for you when you're in labor. The inside of the knees will be nice, and it will help to bring the energy down. So that's nice too.
Thank you so much for those tips. And We really just, I mean, this conversation flowed so effortlessly speaking with you. And again, really just want to say thank you for all the work that you're doing and for the book. And if anybody that's listening, I highly recommend getting The Art of Jin Shin. And this should be on everyone's shelf. I definitely,
Thank you.
really just again resonated with it and appreciate everything you're doing. And so where can people find you? And I know you said you're in New York City, but do you have a website and are you on social media? Where can people
Yes.
follow you?
Yeah, I do a lot of Facebook Live and teaching on social media. So we have a page called Jin Shin Institute. And so people can join that. And I have a study group, Jin Shin Institute study group as well. And we're on Instagram and Twitter and all of the social medias as well. Or they can contact us at support@jinshininstitute.com. That's our website is jinshininstitute.com. And just one more thing. Did you see the picture of the baby and the mom in the book?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was a newborn. And so if you look at the hold that she's doing, that's the natural hold when you're breastfeeding.
Mm-hmm.
And so please use that, because people are doing all this multitasking and they use a pillow and then breastfeed. But the natural hold is the perfect hold for a baby that harmonizes that cycle of energy. So, please hold the baby a lot.
That's funny because intuitively something kept telling me not to get a nursing pillow, and I'm not sure why, but everybody's like, you need to get a nursing pillow. You need to get a nursing pillow. I was like, something's telling me not to get one. Maybe this is exactly why.
Yeah, you got it. And so just look at that hold with the mom and the baby there.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, for spreading this beautiful art form, and for taking time out of your lovely day to share space with us on our podcast.
Well, thank you both so much, and wishing you all the best with everything.
Such a lovely, energetic, healing art form. I'm really glad that Alexis has taken it upon herself to make this her calling and to bring this information across the world. And we just realized something as we've been, closing out 2019, getting ready to welcome in 2020, that all of our podcast episodes, like the last 7 or 8 of them, refer heavily to me being pregnant. You guys probably think I'm just perpetually pregnant. When is she ever going to have this baby? It's hilarious because I'm actually pregnant right now as we record and prepare these episodes to be released during the first few months of our baby's life, so that we don't have to take too much time out of our day to put this up and make this available. We're doing all the work now. So by the time you hear this interview, I'll have already had the baby in September of 2019, and we'll be just settling into new parent life. So this podcast episode wraps up 2019 for us, as we take a little bit of a break, spend some time with our families, our new baby, and just enjoy the holidays. But we are planning on bringing in 2020 with a bang. We already have wonderful guests scheduled and booked, ready to interview. So remember, we love your feedback. Leave us a review. Let us know, what are your favorite episodes? What were your favorite episodes of 2019? What do you particularly enjoy about the Soul and Wonder podcast? What would you like us to improve? What kind of guests would you like us to bring more of on? So communicate with us. Let us know. Leave us a review, and we will do everything we can to enhance this experience for you. You guys enjoy the rest of your year. Get the Art of Jin Shin, and follow us on social media at Soul and Wonder on Facebook and Soul and Wonder